Rolling here in just a second. Bear with me. Making sure all the toys are working. Okay. Okay, guys. So this morning, I thought I was going to have a special bonus for you guys, where I was going to broadcast live from the Never Step Into a Bank boot camp. Well, the problem with that is I forgot my laptop. Mike, how's that for volume? Volume's good. Okay. So, Mike, if you can't hear me, I would recommend turning up the volume. Not sure what kind of device you're on, Mike, but check the volume settings on your side because I'm putting it out as much as I possibly can without overmodulating it. So it's about the best I can do. So today, folks, we are going to, like I said, I was going to give you a bonus opportunity with the Never Step Into a Bank boot camp. The problem is I left my computer at the house, drove all the way over to Tampa to realize my MacBook was sitting at home in the living room in my briefcase. So that said, I had to turn around, drop my assistant off there with Larry, and turn around and head all the way back home, which I'm back here at the studio to go ahead and get you guys on time. So I apologize. We could not be doing that. But if you have not liked my Facebook page for my podcast, I would recommend doing that. Go into Facebook and type in Cash Flow Guys Podcast. Make sure you like that page because I'm going to try to go live again this afternoon in that page and stream some of the Never Step Into a Bank bootcamp to help you guys out a little bit, give you some free opportunities to see there with Larry and whatnot. This morning, we're going to talk about negotiations. I'm going to dive a little bit into negotiations, and then we'll hit some Q&A and whatnot from there. Now, for those of you that are new, my name is Tyler Sheff. I am the host of the Cash Flow Guys podcast, and I want to welcome you to the show, first of all. We hope that you get value out of this, and it's what keeps this going, guys, is if you ask questions. I mean, I'm going to throw a lot of stuff out there at you. Feel free to ask questions. If you look below, if you are on the Zoom session right now, you click on Q&A, and that will allow you to ask all the questions you want to ask. And then I will do my best to answer them as they come in. Now, what I'm doing, if I've got the slideshow up, I just kind of ask that you hold the questions until I get through the little presentation there. Once I get through that presentation, then I'll be able to answer all the questions that you guys have, or at least I will try to get all of them. But good morning. Like I said, for those of you that are new, my name is Tyler Sheff. I'm the host of the Cash Flow Guys podcast. What this is about, this is called Coffee with the Cash Flow Guys. My intent here is to help demystify real estate investing or real estate in general, because the bottom line is nothing that we do in real estate is rocket science. People tend to try to make it rocket science, but it's not. There's gurus out there that'll charge you $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 to learn what myself and people I know will teach you for free or close to free. So the key here is that you have to figure out first what you don't know. And I recommend everybody start with books. And once you get started with reading a couple books, that's going to bring questions. As those questions come up, get out there and don't be afraid to ask the questions. You don't have to pay $50,000 to get your questions answered. I mean, you could save money by hiring an attorney to be your full-time bitch and still spend less than $50,000. So think about that. I am a little outside of the box. You may find those of you that are sweet, gentle flowers. If you are easily offended, if you found yourself protesting recently, you probably are not going to enjoy this show. It would be a good idea to go ahead and turn it off now. I am not political. I could care less about politics. I think all politicians are useless. I don't care who they are. None of them are any good. I think they're all useless. I'm a realist. I believe in things being like I tell it like it is. I call it like I see it, and I have a no bullshit format. The people that are fans of my podcast, the Cashflow Guys podcast, I believe they appreciate that. That's the feedback that I get from my audience, is they appreciate the fact that I'm not going to blow smoke up your ass. I'm going to tell you like it is. If you're easily offended, turn it off now, because I guarantee you're going to get offended. If you are a real estate agent, I suggest that you listen, but I will probably make some snide jokes, because I think there's a lot of good agents out there, and I think there's a lot of bad agents out there. I am a licensed agent in the state of Florida, and I feel to some degree that entitles me to poke fun at realtors, because I are one. That said, this is not for the weak-willed. If you are a gentle flower, there are groups you can join where everybody will tell you that it's sweet and cuddly, and they'll pat you on the fanny and tell you that you're number one. And that's not me. I am right to the point. I'm not going to baffle you with bullshit. That's just not how I play. So that said, it is, what is today? My goodness, today is February 17th. I hope you guys had a great Valentine's Day. I've just checked. Everything seems to be working on my end. And again, if you have questions, make sure you type them in the Q&A box, and I will get to them one at a time. So there you go. Mike, good. Go grab your headphones if you don't have them. That's right. My voice does not translate well. I am one of those guys that cannot yell very well. I tend to make, little dogs pee and things like that when I do raise my voice. But it's my curse. What can I tell you? So today, the topic is, let me get the screen sharing going. Negotiations. First of all, negotiations. So we are going to talk about negotiations. Let me see here. For those of you on Periscope, let's see if I can get the screen flowing. There we go. All right. So everybody should see the screen up in front of them. Ladies and gentlemen, to successfully negotiate, you have to understand, and this is to buy a property, you have to understand the strategy behind how the seller priced their property. Or if it's listed with a realtor, you have to understand the strategy of how the listing agent arrived at the price. If you don't understand the strategy, you're never going to be able to negotiate out of it. I'll say it again. If you don't understand the pricing strategy, you are never going to be able to negotiate around it or through it. And then people will say, well, how do you understand what the strategy is? Well, you open up your mouth and you ask the questions. Hey, how do I learn more about how you come up with the pricing? Now, the way you say it is going to have a big impact on the response that you get. That said, if you say, how in the hell did you come up with that price? Well, you're going to get a response conducive to that type of reaction. However, if you say, I find pricing of real estate fascinating, and I like to learn new things every day. So could you help me understand how you arrived at the market value or the asking price so that I can maybe learn something from this? Another way I can do it, if it's a real estate agent, I'll say, oh, this is an income property, correct? Yes, it is. Okay. Did you use the income method to determine the value or the comparable sales method? And their agent will think about it for a second. 9 times out of 10, their response is going to be somewhere along the lines of comparable sales. That's the agent's go-to. That's all they really tend to know is the comparable sales method. Nothing wrong with that if you're pricing a property for people that are going to move in and live in the asset, and instead of making an asset, make it a liability. If it's a house you're going to buy, you're going to move in and live in it, whatever, use comparable sales. Got no problem with that. But if it's an investment property, then you need to be pricing it based on, or valuing it rather, based on the income it generates. In other words, I don't care if the house will sell for $200,000. The fact of the matter remains, it rents for $900, and I can only pay you based on the fact that it produces $900. Not anymore, unfortunately. So keep that in mind. You have to number two is you have to understand why they are selling. And this, I can't hit this home enough. You have to understand why they are selling. If they're if they have it up for sale because they're bored and they're testing the market to see how things are going to shake out, well, that's fine. But you need to know that, because that type of seller, you're not going to go in and offer them 70% of ARV minus repairs. And yes, I say that like a smartass. And the reason why I say that like a smartass is because, guys, have some ingenuity. If you do the same thing that everybody else does, you can pretty much expect a similar result. In other words, everybody's a wholesaler today. Everybody's a wholesaler. Well, I'm going to flip and I'm going to do wholesale until I can buy and hold. That's garbage. Everybody says that. Gurus try to pitch that because it's easy to write a wholesaling course. Any jackass can write a wholesaling course. I'll write one for you right now. Hold on. I'm going to write it right now. Bear with me. So much so that I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing so you guys can see this on the screen. Here's my wholesaling course 101. Buy low, sell high. The end. The cost for that, today only, if you act now, today only, $997. For $997, I will teach you very little about real estate, and you can get rich overnight. Today only, $997. Buy low, sell high. Swipe your credit card. What could go wrong? I digress. Back to negotiating. So you need to understand what the seller will do with the proceeds of the sale. Last night, we were at Larry Harbolt's Never Step Into a Bank seminar, and it was awesome, as it always is, but we had a special guest come in, Peter Fortunato. Peter Fortunato is a legend real estate investor, truly a legend. This guy, I'm telling you, he should write a book. He blew our doors off for almost 2 hours last night. Absolutely epic session. I begged and pleaded to record it. He wouldn't have it. That's okay. But I came away, and guys, I've been doing this 18 years now. I came away with more information in that 2 hours last night than, oh, God. I'm really happy that the people, especially people from the kingdom, showed up down there to that event so they could take advantage of that, because those people are getting out of the rat race this year. If they take half of the action that they were given in that 2 hour block last night, or any of the action that they take when they learn from Larry this weekend, they're going to be out of the rat race this year. Everybody else is going to be trying to wholesale. Meanwhile, these folks are going to be acquiring assets. Pete Fortunato says it takes 5 to 15 houses to be financially free. And Pete does not believe in paying cash. He does not use bank mortgages. Pete has to understand why the seller, or what the seller plans to do with the proceeds of the sale. That's absolutely critical information. Mr. Seller, I'm curious. What are you going to do with that big pile of money? Ha, ha, ha. Saying it in a way that the seller is not offended or not put on guard will help you get to the answer. In other words, don't do the old punch him in the throat and say, hey, dude, what do you plan on doing with all that money? That could offend the seller. Don't go down that road. Instead, talk to them about the moon, the stars, the whatever, build rapport, and then ask the question, hey, I was curious, I'm going to probably, if I wrote you a check for this, that's a big chunk of change. What are you going to do with that big chunk of change? Ask the question. It's a realistic question. Nothing wrong with that. When you get your answer, that's going to help you decide how you're going to write your offers. In other words, your offer needs to meet the seller's criteria. It needs to solve their pain. If your offer does not solve their pain, you're wasting your time. Guys, don't go to retail properties. In other words, something listed on the MLS by a realtor where the seller lives on a country club, the house is gorgeous. You find out that the seller's got a new job and they're making twice as much money and they don't really need to sell, but they thought they'd try it. Don't go to that guy or girl and make a lowball offer. You're wasting your time. You make offers that make sense and solve the seller's pain. If the seller doesn't have any pain, don't write the offer. It's that simple. You can't just expect a deal just because I'm an investor. I deserve a deal. I'm an investor. No, you're an idiot. Back away. You have to be direct to the seller or the decision maker. And I know a lot of you spend time working on properties that are listed by agents. I'm not saying there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. However, if you're going to work on listed properties, then you have to be confident that the agent is willing to share with you the reasons why the seller is selling and what they're going to do with the money. I think you will find that it's highly unlikely the agent will be willing to do that because they have what they call a fiduciary responsibility to their seller to provide them with some sort of limited confidentiality or complete confidentiality depending on their relationship. So don't think you're going to march in there to a property that's listed on the MLS and demand that the listing agent tell you what's up with the seller, because they'll probably tell you to pack sand. That said, if you take the time to build rapport with the agent, there's nothing wrong with asking that the agent be present when you go deliver the offer to your seller. And people are like, you can't do that. The agent won't allow it. Here's the news for you guys. The National Association of Realtors Code of Ethics clearly says that the listing agent must present all offers. You are entitled to be present when your offer is being explained to the seller. Nothing wrong with that. It's actually written right into the Code of Ethics. So you need to use that. Go get in front of the seller, because I don't think anybody's going to be able to explain your creative offer as well as the person that wrote it, which is you. So think about that. You will get pushback from a lot of agents. Agents are somewhat insecure sometimes when they're afraid that you're going to steal their customer or they're going to get cut out of the deal. So that said, when you're building rapport with them, one of the things that you need to think about is making sure that they understand that you are going to make sure they get paid. Okay, first and foremost. If the agent gets any inkling that you are not going to, you're going to figure out a way to not to compensate them, you're asking for trouble. You're absolutely asking for trouble. Frankly, I think that's a BS move. I think that doesn't make good sense. Why would you want to screw somebody out of a paycheck? If that's the mentality you have, you're probably not the kind of guy that's going to last very long in real estate. I hope somebody's going to put you in your place, because you don't really belong in my market. That's for sure. You take care of the people that you work with. You know, you're dealing with people, and you have to understand that you are dealing with people. Real estate is a people business. Okay, it's not about how quickly you can get over on somebody or how savvy you can use your silver tongue and talk them out of their property. That's not how this works, guys. If you do that, you're not going to last long in this business. The business will eat you up and spit you out. So instead, make friends. Build rapport with people. You should treat them like your family members, assuming that you like your family members. Write offers that make sense and that solve their problems. That's important. Show the deal breakdown based on the asking price. In other words, everything in my market, by my criteria right now, is overpriced. I don't care if it's for sale by owner. I don't care if it's being offered by a wholesaler. I don't care if it's on the MLS. Doesn't matter. The prices are through the roof. I'm convinced that people are guessing. Pretty much everybody in my market is guessing. That said, very rarely have I ever seen a deal that was written saying, please come buy me. Hey, how about you take my brand new house for half value? Guys, that never happens. Let's be realistic. People automatically are going to price their properties at as much as they think they're worth. Wouldn't you? I mean, would you go take your nice house when you don't have a problem and offer it to everybody for a discount? Hey, come take my money. Yeah, it'd be great. Want my car too? That'd be awesome. The couch? Yeah, you can have that too. No. Properties that are for sale, their asking price is almost always inflated. Anybody, that's just reasonable. That's what people do. You couldn't expect any different. We all know we would do the same thing. So if you're looking for a deal, you have to go make a deal. You have to find properties where the seller has a compelling need to sell. That could mean that the house is falling apart. It could mean they're behind on the mortgage. It could mean they're about to get a divorce and they can't stand their spouse and they just want to get rid of this house. It could mean that somebody recently died and the house was inherited. There's a million different reasons. They didn't pay their taxes, property tax or otherwise. A million different reasons of why people would have a compelling need to sell their house. It could be something as simple as People they just decided that they needed the money for something else, like maybe paying medical bills. I had one once where the people had 20 grand in medical bills, so they thought selling their house would solve that debt. What they quickly realized is that we could pay that debt off using their house, and they could get structured payments over time. So that became a win-win. It's absolutely critical when a property is grossly overpriced, especially income properties. Income properties listed by realtors in a lot of cases. Here's the deal. Properties between 2 to 4 units fall into the residential realm of things usually. Commercial agents usually don't want to mess with duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes because it's too small. It's not sexy enough, whatever the reason is. Commercial agents generally will not list those. They will, unless they're starving to death. So that leaves the residential agents. The residential agents, all they understand is comps, because in the 64 hours worth of training they got, if they're in Florida anyway, the only thing they understand is comps. So that said, they're going to price it based on comps, not based on the income method. So we automatically know going in, the property is probably either grossly overpriced or grossly underpriced. I have bought multifamily properties that were grossly underpriced just because they used comps. They took an average of single family houses that were in a rough area, that were in a declined market, and they used that to assemble property value. Beautiful. That worked out to my advantage. Thank you very much. However, when they're overpriced, that's another thing. So using this next piece here, show the deal breakdown based on the asking price, is a great tool to get the price where it needs to be by basically taking their numbers. Hey, Mr. Seller, I know you want $200,000 for this duplex. And you had said to me that it rents for $600 per side, right? Yes. Okay. So $600 a side, that's $1,200 per month income coming in. Is that correct? Yes, it is. Okay. So here's how that boils out. And you go through the deal and explain to them based on their numbers. Because remember, your numbers are always going to be incorrect. Their numbers are the ones that matter. So you use that, you kind of turn it around against them, kind of to some degree. Here's the breakdown based on your numbers. Based on your numbers, I'd be losing $546 a month, let's say. Can you help me understand how that would be a good investment for me? Because I'm missing something. I'd say absolutely nothing. Not a word. Just kind of hang out and listen to what they say. For those of you on Periscope, if you want to be part of this conversation live, go to cashflowguys.com/coffee, cashflowguys.com/coffee, and register. And you can jump in and ask questions during the Q&A. For those of you that are in the actual webinar, understand that while I have the slide up, I cannot see the questions. I will get them answered when I turn off the slideshow here in a few minutes. So by showing the deal breakdown, folks, you can show them in a way they can understand for themselves, because the numbers never lie, that the numbers they have it at simply won't work. One strategy I've done to avoid telling somebody that they're overpriced, because if you go in and say, well, you're just overpriced, that's not going to get you very far. People don't want to hear that they're wrong, so don't tell them that they're wrong. Hey, Mr. Seller, I'm losing money on this deal based on the way it's written. Let me ask you, is it possible you could get the rents up to $1,000 each, $2,000 a month before closing? Because if you can, then I could probably do this deal. And they're going to say, oh, well, no, that won't work. Oh, I see. Okay. So how else can we put this deal together to make it make sense? So it's a win-win. Simply asking those questions make a huge difference in how the negotiation plays out. Whenever possible, ladies and gentlemen, always be face-to-face when negotiating. Be face-to-face when negotiating. In today's world, I kind of have a hard time believing people cannot be face-to-face, because we've got things like Zoom, this great platform that we're using, where we can be face-to-face. We've got Apple FaceTime. We've got all these different tools that will allow us to be face-to-face with the seller, the decision maker. That said, if the property is owned by more than one person, everybody needs to be involved in the negotiation. Do not negotiate once with the husband and then go back and negotiate with the wife. Do it all at the same time, or don't do it at all. Here's why. If you get agreement with the husband, and now the next day you have to go get agreement from the wife, I can almost guarantee you hubby has changed his mind and the deal will fall apart. I almost guarantee you that'll happen. So don't fall trapped to that, okay? Make sure that all the decision makers are present. When you're face to face, you can gauge people's responses to what you're saying. You can look them in the eye. That's a big deal. Now, I know that the millennials out there, you guys don't look anybody in the eye because you're too busy looking down at your phone. But you got to leave the phone in the car, guys. Leave the phone, the iPad, the MacBook, all that other crap in the car. You know, Witches in Warcraft can wait until you're done doing negotiating. Facebook Messenger can wait. You don't have to tweet and Twitter and Snapchat and all that while you're in a negotiation. You can wait. Be face to face, knee to knee, like Larry Harbolt says, sitting at the kitchen table, having conversations with people. That's how you're building rapport. Using Skype or Zoom is a great way to work with out-of-state sellers. Again, you're going to have a hard time convincing me that there's any reason why you cannot be face-to-face. I really have a hard time believing that you cannot be face-to-face, except for the fact that you are scared of confrontation. And when you're scared of the confrontation, well, guess what? You're not going to get very far. If you can't be face-to-face, you're never going to get that know, like, and trust. I cannot begin to tell you how important that know, like, and trust is. That is absolutely critical to your success. Because if you're hiding behind something and you're just not willing to look people in the eye, you're not going to get very far. See, anybody can throw out numbers. But unless you plan on paying full price, you can pretty much guarantee that without getting the know, like, and trust, the sellers they're not going to take any other number except for the highest one. Now, as an investor, probably yours is not going to be the highest one. If I had to guess, I believe that would be the case. You're not going to be the highest one. During one of our next sessions, I see your thing there, Jocelyn. We're going to talk about the 4 personality types. We're not going to do that today, but we will do that another time. And I want to reiterate the fact, guys, do not negotiate over text message or email. This includes Facebook Messenger, Facebook, any other type of messaging software, Snapchat. Guys, don't do it. That's not building rapport. That's not going to get you very far. Okay? It's absolutely not going to get you very far. You may think that it's going to get you places. You may think that people are going to respond to that, and they very well may, but I guarantee you at some point, somebody's going to misunderstand what you say in a text. You're going to piss them off, and you're going to lose the opportunity. Don't put yourself out there to do that. Larry Harbolt says, leave your technology in the car, and I couldn't agree more. And I get it. It's hard, but I have to do it. I leave my technology in the car. And yeah, I don't even take a calculator. The reason being is I've got Larry's loan constants, and I use Larry Harbolt's loan constants sheet to help me understand what my mortgage payments are going to be. It's basically a chart. And I give it to the seller and have them look up the numbers, because when the sellers look up the numbers are correct. Keep that in mind. When the sellers look up the numbers and they're putting down the numbers are correct. If your numbers come out, well, they're probably going to be suspect. Oopsie. Sorry, guys, got carried away with the slides here. Working with realtors and wholesalers, I want to cover this, and then I'll get into your questions. The thing is, you have to ask. Everything I teach primarily has to do with buy and hold investors, those people that actually want to build wealth, not flippers and wholesalers. Nothing against flipping and wholesaling, but guys, that's a job. That is one tool in a toolbox. If you identify yourself as I'm a wholesaler, that's pretty limiting right there. That says all you understand is that wholesaling. That also tells me that you're broke, you don't have any money, and the only thing you can come up with is wholesaling, which, if that's what it is, but I would try to think bigger and better if it were me. That's just me. Do they own rental property? This applies to realtors and wholesalers. If you're buying rental property and you're dealing with a wholesaler or a realtor, do they own rental property? An interesting thing that Pete Fortunato said yesterday, in all the years that he's been in business, which is like 40 some years, he has never once bought from a wholesaler because he's never once had a wholesaler actually ask him for his criteria. Never once. That's a shame. That's just sad. Wholesalers are, I believe, afraid of terms. That's pretty sad because they're missing millions of dollars in commissions by not being afraid to negotiate terms. Same goes for realtors. Dealing with a wholesaler or a realtor, you have to ask them, how are they determining the property value? I can tell you how. Both of them are using comps, after repair value. That's a garbage number. That number does not matter. If you're a real investor and you're buy and hold, then comps don't matter. I don't consider fix and flip. I don't consider wholesaling being investing. That's just a job. Okay? You're not really investing anything except sweat and tears. That's not going to work. The value of a property really depends on what someone is willing to pay for it. In other words, if I think a property is worth $100,000, for example, John Williams over in Charlotte may think it's worth $50,000. That doesn't mean that either one of us is wrong. It just means that we have different perceptions of value. Everybody has different perceptions of value. So that does not mean that the other party is wrong. They can absolutely be 100% correct. They just have a different opinion. And Pete Fortunato says that value is subjective. One of the things that he asked is, why would you ever want to sell a beautiful house like this? Pete also said something that I wrote down yesterday. It said, value has nothing to do with math. It has to do with people. Man, that's a powerful statement. Think about that. Value has nothing to do with math. It has everything to do with people. So if you have three investors look at the same property, one's a rehabber, one's a wholesaler, and the other one's a buy and hold investor, they're all going to come up with different opinions of value based on what they're going to do with the property. You put a retail buyer into the mix, they're going to have a different opinion of value. You got to think about, does your realtor or wholesaler think in piles or streams? Piles or streams? I think it's streams. I can't stand piles. And what I'm talking about with piles or streams is cash. If your realtor is living paycheck to paycheck or closing to closing, they're probably just motivated to make sure that you close. And that's it. I get that. Nothing wrong with that. I've been in places like that in the past. Same with wholesalers. Wholesalers, they're just looking for the next closing. They're no different than the realtors, really. So think about that for a minute. They're just trying to get to the next closing. That's all they're focused on. And it is what it is. All they have is a job, so you can really expect no different. But if they think in streams, or if you can get them on board with thinking about streams, then you can compensate them better, number one, than what they make now. You can help them have a better quality of life, and maybe you can teach them how to negotiate terms on your behalf, or maybe they already know how, but maybe they've been keeping all those properties for themselves. So maybe if you come up with a way to pay them more than what they're used to getting and show them where they can get a stream of income over time, they may do a better job for you. If you call me up tomorrow and say, Tyler, I'll give you $10,000 to sell me a duplex, I may or may not pay attention because $10,000 does not excite me. But if you call me and say, I'll give you $100 a month for the next however long, I'll be much more excited on that, especially because I can almost guarantee you that $100 a month is going to add up to a lot more than 10 grand. So I would much rather have smaller payments over time. You should be taking the time to educate your realtor and wholesaler about your criteria. Don't be that guy or that girl that says, hey, if you get any great deals, let me know. Your phone's never going to ring, guys. What are you looking for? What's a great deal for you? Oh, anything in Tampa. Tampa's a big town. What about Tampa? Well, anything in Charlotte, North Carolina. Okay, what's your price point? Oh, up to $250,000. Oh, okay, so here's a $5,000 mobile home. What's they going to say? Well, I don't want that. Okay, so let's drill it down a little more. Houses between 100 and 200,000 that when you fix them up, you'll be able to make a 20% profit on, let's say, or 10% profit, whatever it winds up being. Be realistic with your criteria. Know what you need to get paid. Number one, what you need to get paid, and number two, know how the person you're selling to is going to get paid. What's in it for them. Okay. Look up at number four. How are they paid? One, fee or seller's proceeds. Think about that with a realtor or wholesaler. How do they make their money? If they make their money on whatever you end up paying for the property, well, they're not working for you guys. They're working for the seller. Make it neutral. Take their fee out of the mix by simply offering them some sort of compensation plan that is attractive to them. Taking responsibility to make sure that wholesaler or realtor is getting paid. Now, they're a little more neutral and probably going to lean a little bit more your direction. Is that reasonable? Of course it is. Think about that. If you look at the bottom of the slide, it clearly says you do not need to be a cash buyer only to buy from a wholesaler. Okay? Wholesalers do this all the time. Looking for cash buyers. Cash buyer, cash buyer, cash buyer. That's garbage. Stop saying that. You don't need cash buyers if you're a wholesaler. You need people that can identify opportunity, that understand their own investor identity, their criteria, and it doesn't matter how they pay. Okay? Because here's the deal. You can make a hell of a lot more money wholesaling pretty houses than you ever can wholesaling crappy houses. So don't do what every other jackass in town does. Be different. Learn something different. Try a different way of doing things. It's like double closing. You don't need to double close, guys. If you're that much of a chicken shit that you're afraid of people seeing what you make, then you probably don't belong in the business anyway. I know somebody probably got butthurt when I said that, but you guys will get over it. Bottom line is, guys, you don't need to double close. And don't take the advice of call a title company and see if they'll double close. I can tell you 9 times out of 10 the answer is going to be no. You should be proud of what you're doing. Bring value to the marketplace and just assign the things. That helps you as far as the title insurance is provided, number one, that you can make sure that the buyer gets good title insurance. Go ahead and sell a buyer a property where there's issues with the title insurance and the title and see how many hot properties they buy from you after the fact. I got a wholesaler right now that's trying to sell me a property in Memphis, and he took no responsibility for the title. And I said, well, I can tell you right now by looking in public records, this house was in a foreclosure a couple of years back. So here's the deal. If I buy this property and I find out there's something wrong with the title, I'm going to sue the living hell out of you. How you like that? He got all quiet. Amazing. See, he's only concerned about the $3,500 or $5,000 he's trying to make off the property. He could give two shits about me or my team. He's just going to run me down the road. So be careful. These people are not out there looking out for you. They're looking out for their own wallet. I'm not saying that to be negative. I'm saying that to be realistic. That's a fact. John asked, how would one transition a conversation from I'm getting a bank loan to is there a reason why you would not take payments for your equity? Let's see here. Hang on one second. Let me stop the screen share. When going through the numbers with them, there's always a debt service number in there to start with. Let me read that again. Maybe I didn't get it. I'm interested in, bear with me one second. Transition a conversation from I'm getting a bank loan. I'm not quite sure what you mean by you're getting a bank loan. Are they telling you they're getting a bank loan, or you're telling them? You're talking to the seller? I mean, I never mention I'm getting a bank loan because I don't get bank loans. That's where you start with mindset. My mindset is that I don't get bank loans. My mortgage broker loves me, but not because I get mortgages from him. It's because I send people to him to get mortgages. So for me, I would never say that. My mindset is, so how much equity do you have, Mr. Seller? Oh, well, I've got $20,000 in equity. Oh, okay, that's cool. So how do you want to go ahead and receive your payments for that equity? You want that at like $200 a month, or would you rather have annual payments, or how do you want to structure that? And say nothing. Because if you convince yourself that this is how you do business, then other people are going to get on board. But if you're all sheepish, hiding behind him going, he's doing me a favor if he takes payments for his equity. No, you're doing him a favor that you're buying this crappy house. Think about that. Change your mindset. Think of things a little differently. Try it out. See how it works for you. I guarantee if you practice this and you really convince yourself that this is the way things happen, you're going to be far more successful. Every single deal I sit down to try to negotiate, I had just assumed people would want terms. I've done such a good job of convincing myself of this that when people tell me they're not willing to accept payments for equity, I'm shocked. You want cash for your house? Wow, it's been a long time since I've paid somebody cash for their house. Cash, that stuff that the government prints out that has no backing. You know, Mr. Seller, it's interesting. What a lot of my real savvy sellers like yourself tell me is that they really don't want the cash. What they want is what the cash will bring them or buy them, whichever you want to say. And they think about that for a second. Because remember, if you're talking all the time, they don't have a chance to think. So when you say something like that that's somewhat compelling, shut your mouth. You know, Mr. Seller, a lot of my savvy sellers tell me that they don't really want the cash. They want what the cash will bring them. Don't say a word. Let them talk next. Silence, as you just heard, is a little uncomfortable. If I sat here and just looked at you, feeling uncomfortable yet? Feeling a little creeped out? I am. It works. Trust me. Don't be in a rush to get into the negotiating. Spend the time to build some rapport with the seller. Do not get into a rush. If you get in a rush, they're going to feel rushed. When people feel rushed, they get a little nervous. When people get nervous, things are not going to go your way. Think of the defense mechanisms that people use when they're nervous. Don't go to that place. That's a bad thing. Paul in Canada asks, when you are showing a deal breakdown, what math are you going to use? Is it if it was seller finance for $350,000 and a rent for $1,100 each side? Okay, good question. Let me get a sheet of paper here, and I'll tell you right now. So first thing I'm going to look at is $350,000 purchase price and $2,200 income. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run my 1.5 rule that some of you think, that doesn't work. It works everywhere. And if it doesn't work, you suck at negotiating. Ha! How do you like that? So 2,200 divided by, so I'm taking the gross income per month, which is 1,100 each side, times 2 is 2,200, right? I'm assuming that it's a duplex. Is this a duplex? Now, Paul said each side, so I'm going to try to apply some logic and see what he says. Okay. Paul says yes, it's a duplex. So 2,200 divided by 1.5%. That tells me that the most I can pay for this property, all in, that includes all of my expenses, cannot exceed $146,000. So if dude's asking $350K for a duplex, a lot of money. So I could at this point say, Paul, have you lost your mind? Are you smoking crack? What the hell is wrong with you? You stupid Canadian. I can't believe that you would overprice your property like this. No wonder you guys don't tip when you come to Florida. Just kidding. That's not going to work, guys. That's never going to work. All you're going to do is piss off the seller. I probably got Paul in tears already. But seriously, $2,200 in income. That's what I'm going to look at first. So $2,200 in income. First thing I'm conservative. Keep this in mind. Other people will tell you different. Like Pete Fortunato says 40% for expenses. Well, Pete's a lot smarter than me and a much better negotiator than me. So because I'm not as smart as Pete, I'm going to make it simple. I'm going to pretend my expenses are half of my gross income. So 2,200 minus 1,100 equals 1,100. So for me, I'm looking at, all right, $1,100 is what I have left over after paying the expenses for the property. That's assuming the expenses are 50%. Remember, these numbers I'm using are numbers that I'm using to negotiate with the seller. So I'm not going to make them in their favor. I'm going to make them in my favor. Hey, Mr. Seller, you're an experienced investor. You figure expenses usually run about 50% of the rent, right? And say nothing. And half the time they'll go, yeah, especially if you shake your head. Yeah. Okay, 50%. So 2,200 rent coming in, right? Yep. So half of that's 1,100, right? Yep. All right. Can you keep notes for me while I'm thinking this through? Sure. And they start writing it down for you. Remember, if it's their math, it's correct. And always seek agreement from them. Remember, you don't want to disagree with the seller. You want them to educate you because you're not as smart as they are. They're much smarter than you, right? So 1,100. So that's 1,100 is what you have left to pay mortgage payments with. Okay. So I want to make sure that I can pay my mortgage payment twice and still have some profit. That's me. So usually what I would do is I take the 1,100 figure and I divide that by 4. That means there's $275. There's 4 shares of $275. Remember, I want to pay my mortgage twice. So that means my mortgage payment has to work with that math. So based on that, if my mortgage payment was $275, I need to be able to pay that twice. So $275 and $275, which means $550, which means I will cash flow $550 on this property. So for me, I would start right there with my debt service. I need to be at $275 a month to make this make sense. You would agree, right, Mr. Seller? Feeling that uncomfortable silence yet? I am. They're going to say, first of all, when you said that, remember, we haven't discussed price. He said he wanted $350. That's fine. That's how we can do that. Now, 90% of you are going, they're never going to take $275 a month. I call bullshit because you don't know that for sure. Okay. You don't know that. You don't know that because you haven't asked them. Like the pretty girl at the dance. You ever wonder why the ugly girl or the ugly guy at the dance always gets to dance with the pretty girl? Well, because he's the only one that had the balls to ask. Think about it. Some of the best deals I've had have been coming in after 30 people have already made ridiculous offers. And the seller's so wound up by the time I got there, I'm not taking a penny less than $350. You're goddamn right, sir. I don't blame you one bit. I wouldn't take less than $350 either. Here's how we can do that. And you start doing the numbers. Have them do the numbers. Think about that. It's pretty powerful. It works. A lot of you have animosity or anxiety, I should say, over negotiating. Oh my God, they're going to say no. It's going to be painful. The seller's going to get mad at me. The seller is as nervous as you are, first of all. Probably more nervous because they have something to lose. The only thing you have to lose is a little bit of time and maybe get your feelings hurt when they say no. But a seller has equity to lose. They could do a bad job negotiating. All their friends could make fun of them. The cat could scratch their eyes out. All kinds of bad things could happen. They could get stressed out pretty easy. So think about that. Put yourself in their position. They're just as freaked out as you are. So relax because nothing's going to hurt you. So that's how I would do it right there, Paul, is that simple. I'm not going to don't get caught up using complicated math and complicated formulas. Lady I know has this formula where she takes the $200 per unit rent, multiplies it by the number of units or something or other. It kind of works, but it's so complicated that, number one, most people can't remember it. And number two, most sellers aren't going to understand it. And if the seller cannot understand what you're doing, well, that's a problem. So there you have it. Deb in Memphis, library just opened, just hopping on. How can I be different as a wholesaler just starting out? Do the exact opposite of what all these gurus teach you. Gurus teach double closings. Call title companies to see if there's double closing, if they'll take double closings. That's a newbie talking. If somebody's teaching you that, you should get your money back if you've paid them. And if you haven't paid them, then don't listen to them anymore because that's ridiculous. Your job is to transfer the deed from the seller to the buyer. You should always, in my opinion, if you want to build wealth, you should be first focused on how can I get my name on that deed first. So I try terms on everything because I don't like to spend cash. Okay, I don't even carry cash. It's dirty. I see cash on the men's room floor. Blech. Cash is evil. Cash is dirty. Mindset. I don't like cash. So I'll sit there and I don't believe in the double close. I don't believe in cash. So the first thing you can do to make yourself different is to do different things. Get your mind right. Grant Cardone says, get your cash flow right. Where's your money? Get your money right. He's absolutely correct when he says that. Gets his money right. So think about that. Don't say I buy houses cash because you don't buy houses cash. Unless you have cash and you buy houses, then you can say I buy houses cash. You don't buy houses cash. Come on. I solve real estate related problems because you do that. Don't bullshit people. If you bullshit people, they're going to know, they're going to find out, and then they're going to be the ones crying in their milk. That's not going to work for you. People won't trust you. You don't have to bullshit somebody to make money in this business. You just be honest with them. I go look at an apartment building. People are like, well, let me see your proof of funds. Why the hell would I send you proof? I don't have a $750,000 sitting in the bank. Shit. I'd be lucky if I got $300 in the bank this week. I raise capital with partners. Hell, I haven't even started the company yet that we're going to use to buy this thing, so we're totally broke right now, technically. Tell me why I need to even go through the energy of raising the capital to acquire this asset in the first place. Sell me the building. I don't believe in a seller's market, a buyer's market. I'm here to think about acquiring this asset. Is it something that you might consider selling if we could come up with terms that make sense? Think about that for a second. It's all on how you deliver it. It's on how you say it. So that's that. Does that help you guys? Always think in math, guys. Don't think in money. When you think in money, it gets emotional. Okay? Don't get all wrapped up with emotions. That'll eat you alive. Every time. Good. I'm glad you found some value. All right. I believe that's what I've got for you guys today. Any questions before we log off? Got about 8 minutes, and then I got to get my butt over to Tampa where I belong because I'm supposed to already be there. Actually, I shouldn't even be talking today. I should have been having you guys listen to Larry. My bad. As soon as I get the streaming set up and I get over to Tampa, if you are on my Facebook page for my podcast, that is the Cashflow Guys podcast page. That's where I'm going to be streaming today. Cashflow Guys podcast page, and I'm going to be streaming on the Real Deal podcast page. So here's your first lesson in taking instructions. If you want to listen to Larry teach for free, be sure that you've liked the page for Cashflow Guys podcast and the Real Deal podcast. Also, make sure you have registered with me and you are on my email list, cashflowguys.com/register. If you're not on my list, you're not going to get the notification that I'm going to send out of where I'm streaming. Okay? So there you have it. Paul, I'm not sure what you mean by the 250, but I'd be willing to do that until the other is paid. If you've got your audio, I can bring you up as a panelist if you got your mic set. Bear with me 1 second. Go ahead and accept that. And let's see. You there,
Hey, how you doing?
Man. Good.
No, yeah, I was just curious on the 250 that we were talking about that you would be giving for the payment, correct?
Yep.
So 250, you would be giving them that until the 350 would be paid.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. That's basically what I had in store. That's
When you say 250 a month till paid, essentially what you're saying, and I probably shouldn't tell you this because it'll derail you, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Don't let it derail you. You don't necessarily need to go into the great details because you're not a banker about the interest versus not interest. When somebody asks for interest, you need to be surprised. Okay, 250 a month until paid. Does that make sense, Mr. Seller? What about my interest? You, okay, well I could give you interest, but so you want 250 including interest? Yeah. Okay, well here's how we can do that. So in that case, you would extend the term to get to that payment. And when they talk about interest, because they will, everybody thinks they need interest. Well, that's fine, interest. So let me ask you, if I wrote you a check for this house, would you put the money in your savings account? Yep. Okay. And what's your savings? What's the bank going to pay you in interest? And they'll come up with a figure, 0.75, 0.5, 1%, whatever.
right.
Okay. So if I double that, would that make sense? If I give you double what the bank would do? Oh yeah. Oh, okay. So then 2%. Yeah. And then I'll extend the term out longer to keep the payment at 250 because we just got done explaining to him that the asset can only afford to pay 250. Because you see, with an investment property, it doesn't matter what Paul from Canada can pay. What matters is what the asset can pay.
Right.
Because if you're going to pay for the property, then you should be moving into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it makes sense. I think these people would die before I have it paid off, though.
They have descendants, right?
Right.
I've got notes out there that far exceed the life expectancy of the person that holds them. And the reason why they agreed to it is because they don't need the money to begin with. Right now, they don't want to pay the taxes on it. So it makes more sense for them to take the payments over time. And then when they die, pass that payment on to their heirs. I bet you that their son or daughter would just love to have structured payments coming in every month. Right?
That's perfect. Yeah, that's awesome.
There you go.
Thanks.
So, does that help you?
Cheers. No, that's awesome. Thank you.
All right, brother. Have a good one. We're going to wrap up here in just a minute.
You too. Thanks.
All right. Pat says, so after you use the income to 1.5 to get income divided by 1.5 to get max offer, what math do you use to come up with a more specific offer? After you have taxes and utilities, insurance, and how do you present that to them? Well, basically, I break out all the expenses. So I will start with let's see here. Do I have a whiteboard I can get up? No, I don't. I start with the income up here at the top. Here's what it rents for. And we've got all of the different expenses. I mean, everything. I pull out everything but the kitchen sink, the water bill, the insurance bill, the property tax, the property management needs to be in there, all the expenses. And I can show you guys a slide here. Give me 1 second. That has a good number of them in it. Here we go. Let me screen share with you. All right. There you have it. All right. So you guys, Periscope should see it as well. So take a snapshot of that with your phone. Those are common expenses. Now, common does not necessarily mean all. It means common. These are the most common ones. As far as the math that you use, I would go rent minus vacancy loss, minus insurance, minus management, minus property taxes, minus utilities, minus lawn, electric, CapEx, minus cleaning and maintenance equals NOI, net operating income. NOI minus debt service. Period. NOI minus debt service equals what's left over for you. So really what you're negotiating is what can the asset afford to pay. Doesn't matter what Pat can afford to pay. What can the asset afford to pay? And I present that to them just like that. If you take the onus, the responsibility of making the payments off of you and onto the asset that they own, well, Mr. Seller, this asset is underperforming right now, so it's not going to be able to pay you the payments that you want. I'm going to have to get it performing, and for me to be able to do that, I'm going to be spending some money. So if I'm spending some money, that means I can't give it to you, can I? Now, we can structure it to where you spend the money to get it performing like that. In that case, I'll give you the money. But we got to get it there first, right? Sorry, guys, got a tickle. But this is one of the things that people overlook, is that they're so caught up in everything, they're not paying attention to the mindset behind, who's really paying here. It shouldn't be you. It should be the asset. The asset should always be paying. And if the asset can't afford the deal, neither can you. Period. Neither can you. So that's what I got for you guys. It's 10 o'clock. I need to get my butt over to Tampa. I hope you found some value today. If you think it was worth investing your time, tell your friends. Have them go to cashflowguys.com. I'll type it in the chat. /coffee. Cashflowguys.com /coffee. Tell anybody you know this call is open to the public. You got a wholesaler out there that's making a fool of themselves, saying that they buy houses with cash and they don't got no damn cash. Get them on the call. I mean, someone tried to justify to me that's a good way of doing business. That's a bullshit way of doing business. You don't need to lie to people to make a living. Okay? You don't have to steal from people to make a living. You don't have to riot in the streets to get people's attention. Like I threw that in there. Anyway. All right, guys. Do honest business. Make cash flow. Try to buy everything that you get your hands on that makes sense first. If you can't or don't want to buy it, and when I mean can't buy it, because it's not in your criteria, not because you don't have the money. Don't ever tell me you don't have the money for something. That's a bunch of garbage. I don't have the money for anything I buy, period. Get your mind in the right mindset. Get your mind right. Get your mind right, everything else will go right. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great weekend and make some money. Learn to earn. Have a great day.